few words to hopefully comfort and inspire us this morning. I'm not going to ask for a show of hands, but I am a control freak by nature, and there are probably many people in our congregation who are like me. It's very disconcerting not to know what I'm doing this week. I have plans, but I don't know what's going to happen with those plans. I was supposed to actually go out of town to Boston on Wednesday. I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen. So I don't actually know where I'm going to be Friday and Saturday. Maybe in Boston, maybe in Tallahassee for a tracking event, maybe in Tampa. It's just kind of disconcerting not to know where we're going. And we see a track of a storm, and we don't know where that track is going. But let's take our minds off the track of the storm for a minute and think about the track of our salvation. Think about the track of our salvation. There's a track for your life that's going from where you are to where God is. And that track may shift periodically. You might move, you might change careers, you might get married, you might have kids. Those kids might go to college, they might get married. The track of our life changes slightly, but the landfall is supposed to be in the kingdom of God. And everything that we do in our services points us to that. We hear in the liturgy the word trust or entrust many times. Like, we entrust to you our whole life. That was in a prayer right before the Lord's Prayer. We entrust to you, loving Master, our whole life and our whole hope. We entrust that this track that we're on is going to lead to your heavenly kingdom. Now, the track of the weather might be destructive this week. The track of your individual life might not end up kind of the way that you hope it will be. But the track of God's plan for your life, that track doesn't move. That track points us from where we are to his kingdom. As I walked around for the great entrance, I hope I can say this without crying. I know there's some people here today, and it's hard for them to be here. Because I've talked to some people in the church, in our church family this weekend. I went to Davis Island last week. I hope I got everybody who got major destruction in their house. I know there's some people that are having a hard time being in church today. I'm sure it's hard for some people to hear, we praise you, we bless you, we give thanks to you for your great glory. And we think, like, well, where was the great glory last Thursday when I needed it? So, props to you. I respect you for being here today on a day that's probably hard to give a lot of love to God. I'm glad you're here today, though, because today is the feast day of St. Thomas. Most people think Thomas Sunday is the Sunday after Pascha, which it is. But October 6th is actually the day we honor St. Thomas. One to pull off if you were a Thomas. I know we had at least a couple for communion. Thomas is called Doubting Thomas, which I never liked that name for him. I think that's actually an unfair ascription to Thomas. Everyone says Thomas doubted because when the disciples said to Thomas, we've seen the Lord, and that was on the evening of the resurrection, we've seen the Lord, and Thomas said, unless I see him, unless I put my hand in the mark of the nails, unless I put my hand in his side, I'm not going to believe. And then 8 days later, Jesus was there, and Thomas was there, and Jesus said to Thomas, don't be faithless, believe. But here's the thing about Thomas. He had a whole week to think about, let me get out of town, let me get away from these people. But he showed up that day. He had so much time to think about it, and he still showed up. So instead of calling him Doubting Thomas, I actually think that he's Faithful Thomas, because he still showed up. In the epistle to the Corinthians today, I kind of had some notes, and I'm kind of going off of them, actually. In the epistle to the Corinthians today, it was like very providential. St. Paul writes, let light shine out of darkness. Let light shine out of darkness. In all these expressions of humanitarian aid, in the wake of last week's storm, we've seen Christ's light shine out of darkness. I have to give props to my former parish of Holy Trinity in Asheville. They were supposed to have their festival last weekend. They had all this food cooked, and of course, it's got to go either in someone's stomach or in the trash. And when they got some semblance of order in Asheville, they actually opened up and they said, we're just going to have food here on the street on Cumberland Avenue. Anybody who's hungry in Asheville, Stop by and have some food. Stop by and have some food. That's what a community is supposed to do. And now I see rays of light shining out of darkness because people are putting on social media, Asheville lost their whole festival. Actually, they just gave it all away. And so, when we take a portion of our proceeds from our festival and give them to hurricane relief, I hope we will send a portion of it to Asheville, because hopefully we're going to have a great festival. They didn't have one at all, but they gave away everything because the people up there, they don't have food, they don't have water. And I know that people are going to come through for them, and I know that we're going to be part of it. And Christ's light will shine through another period of darkness. We're afflicted in every way, so the epistle says, but not crushed. And some of us have been really afflicted this week, but you're not crushed because you're here. Because you're here. We're perplexed, but not given to despair. Many of us question God's will. Maybe not today, but at some point in your life, you're going to question God's will. What's God doing? Where's God? Is he present? Where is he right now in the middle of this storm that's coming? I confess, I got a list of questions I want to ask God one day. Things I'm perplexed about, things I've seen throughout my ministry that don't make any sense to me. A lot of things make a lot of sense. And some things don't make sense, but they make sense later. But some things, they don't make sense at all. So, I am perplexed. And sometimes I'm even in despair. But I don't let myself sit in that. I make sure every Sunday that I'm here, at least in body. Struck down but not destroyed. That's very applicable in this area and throughout the Southeast. We may be struck down and even destroyed in the physical sense, but nothing can strike us down and destroy us in the spiritual sense. Nothing can do that. Nothing can do that. Again, that track that takes our life to paradise, that track is not going to move, no matter how many storms there are in life. There's a path for everybody. In the prayer that I offer at the very end in front of the icon of Christ, it says, Lord, bless those who praise you and sanctify those who put their trust in you. Sanctify those who put their trust in you. In other words, set apart, make a saint the person who trusted in you. Make that person a saint. And the path to sainthood actually involves trusting God. Some of these saints on the walls of our church, they trusted God right to their death. They said, put me to death. I'd rather die than give up my faith in you. And many of them lost homes and lands and were exiled and had terrible lives, and they're sanctified because they put their trust in God. I read a book this week that's not a religious book. It's a novel with some religious overtones in it. I try to read non-work-related things for half an hour a day. As my therapist says, have a half hour of inconsequential behavior every day. So much of what we do has consequences. So have a half hour a day, there's no consequences. So I picked up a book. It had some religious overtones in it, but it's not related to being an Orthodox priest. But there was a sermon given by one of the fictitious characters in the book that I want to quote for you because it was very thought-provoking. And it talks a lot about faith and trust. So not my quote, it's a quote from a novel. And the clergyman says, let me tell you that the one sin I have come to fear more than any other is certainty. Certainty is the great enemy of unity. Certainty is the deadly enemy of tolerance. Even Christ was not certain at the end. He cried out in his agony at the 9th hour on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? Our faith is a living thing precisely because it walks hand in hand with doubt. If there was only certainty, and if there was no doubt, there would be no mystery, and therefore no need for faith. Again, if there was only certainty and if there was no doubt, there would be no mystery, and therefore no need for faith. Every day is a day where faith is needed. This is my quote, not theirs. Every day is a day where faith is needed, and perhaps this week will test our faith in a way that it hasn't been tested. It doesn't take faith to show up when everything is good. It takes faith to show up when everything is bad. To stand before Christ, who, as we say in the Creed, will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead. Every time I take a hit, every time I have a doubt, I use it as part of my case for that day. I will stand before him and say, I had my doubts, but I never quit. So we're all going to have anxiety this week. There's no point in saying, have no anxiety, even though the Bible tells us have no anxiety. We're going to have it. We're human beings. Don't have any anxiety about that line that's carrying your life to salvation. That line's not going to move, no matter where the storm goes. That line's not going to move. Don't have anxiety about that line. You can have anxiety about the TV guys, though. We probably should. But don't despair. If you have doubt, if you have anxiety, show up for God. I pray that we will all be here next Sunday. I pray we will have lights and air conditioning. And I pray that we will be on the other side of this. And whatever happens, we will all say to God, I showed up. Again, I will tell you one personal pastoral thing. In our lifetime, at the end of our life, we're all going to stand before God. And I've told people who have suffered terrible tragedies, especially children that they've laid to rest, I've told each family, be in the front row the Sunday after for yourself, so that you can tell God, on the day that I was most frustrated with you, I showed up and I stood in front. So whatever happens this week in Tampa, show up next Sunday. Not for me, but for you, so that you can say to God, on the week where it went wrong, I was here. And when you come to judge the living and the dead, I believe that my line went to your kingdom, even though the line of this storm and the line of my life may have had a lot of bumps in it. Again, we're praying for everybody's safety this week. Please stay tuned to Constant Contact. We'll let you know what's going on. If there's anything that you need from me, please call my cell if the office is closed. I will answer as long as I have cell service. And God willing, we will see you all here next Sunday.